So, all right. So a lot of talk about targeting and lead generation, dynamic targeting, I should say, to generate leads. Now let's talk about what happens once you get the leads. Walk us through how you guys see the world through retargeting or remarketing.
Yeah. So, as a backdrop, like everyone's had listing alerts for a long time, right? But were they truly dynamic? Did they really follow someone that's like, okay, pre-pandemic, someone was really interested in buying in New York City. That was their life dream. Post-pandemic, maybe now they want to buy in the countryside, right? They're killing it now in Connecticut and New Jersey and upstate New York and all these places, right? So, we are not only, there's two things here, right? Which is the listing alerts are critical, but G can talk about this, like they need to be dynamic, they need to be bonded. And I want you to talk about what that means, a bonded listing alert. But the real game changer is not just the dynamic listing alerts, but doubling, tripling the return to the fishbowl or the return to the site, right? By doing the dynamic remarketing. So let's talk about the listing alerts, then G, let's talk about the remarketing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, email is something that's been around forever. And the reason it's been around forever is because it actually still works, right? Our listing alerts get anywhere from a 70 to 80% open rate, a 25 to 30% click-through rate into the home search website. And the reason that's so significant is because all of that traffic, it's free, right? You don't have to pay any money to get these people to come to your website. The challenge is that based on NAR findings, an average consumer looks at 3 to 5 different home search websites during their home search, right? So for you are one of many different listing alerts that are inboxing into our client's email account. Why would they choose to use yours, right? So we do two things on the email listing alert side. And again, every provider that you work with, you should ask them, how do you actually send out your listing alerts? The first thing we do is we check after every single listing they view, should we adjust their listing alert and send them new listings? That's first and foremost, and that's par for the course. If your system isn't doing that, then you need to get a new, IDX MLS system, right? The second is bonded listing alerts.
Jason want to know, how does it check?
How does it check?
Sure. So let's say you started viewing homes in Santa Monica and Los Angeles, right? Then you narrowed your search and you're starting to look for homes in Venice. We immediately add Venice as a new location in the same price range for you in the listing alert.
Nice. Love it. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, of course. Bonded listing alerts are when a consumer has shown significant interest in a particular home, right? Then we will, anytime that status of that home changes, send them another listing alert about that property. That listing alert almost always gets open, right? Because the consumer wants to know for the homes that they favorited, they viewed 5 times, they've shared with their spouse, that what is happening with that particular property, right? So two tricks of the trade that everyone should be leveraging right now. On the dynamic remarketing side, this is the technology that Facebook released probably 2 to 3 years ago that has started to get to, adoption in the industry, but frankly, I still don't think people use enough.
Not even close.
Not even close, right? What's going on here is this is Listing Alert 2.0, social listing alerts. What we're able to do is when a consumer comes to your home search website, or let's say that you were, you have a lead that's in your database that has been lying fallow and dead for a long time, we take the initial search locations that you provide us, right, from a lead that is another system, and we will start showing this consumer when they come on Facebook homes that are similar to the ones that they viewed the last time they visited your website or they visited your database, right? So this is an alert that now follows them around on social media, on mobile apps that are showing them relevant listings. And we're seeing a 15 to 20% click-through rate, which in Facebook land is like 0.001% from an engagement perspective. Right.
And the coolest thing, Ryan, is notice if you really read the text here on the left-hand side, based on our preferences, these are the homes that meet your criteria. That's the buyer side. On the right-hand side, hi neighbors, compile the latest sold properties that could directly impact your home price. So the remarketing and the nurture, not just on the buyer side anymore, but also on the seller side, because the seller side is so important right now.
And I assume the way these are targeting is going to be similar to what we talked about earlier on, where we are making the catalog. So like homes on the golf course, homes with waterfront views. So you already have a built-in tagging structure in your whole system, so that it can just say, oh, this one matches up with this catalog, show them houses like this.
Yeah, and it also involves kind of an integration with your MLS website, right? Your IDX website, and so every time you view a listing on a site, so like we go as in depth as every time you view a home, we send that data to Facebook. Every time you scroll down on a listing and view the property details, we send that to Facebook. You share the listing, you view a listing multiple times, and the more data that you give to Facebook, and you give them a catalog of homes, the better they can match up the listings. Yep.
You send it to them so that they can then put the right picture basically in front of the consumer.
100%. That's exactly right. Yep.
And again, it's like we're thinking about this stuff deeply on the buyer side and on the seller side, right? And you got to do both, right? Because we know that a lot of times the first thing a seller does is they're figuring out, well, what am I going to buy? And they haven't even, right?
Earliest point of detection of a seller is, where should we move? That's like the earliest point.
Right. Or maybe it's like, well, what is my home worth? And then I can figure out where I'm going to look. And like, so I don't care. Like, we don't care where they start because now we got them both, right? Are they going to start
Look at me. I'm playing on both sides. I'm like literally me as a case study. I'm like, okay, my neighborhood seems to be a little bit inflated compared to other neighborhoods. I see an opportunity to sell this house and then move to a neighborhood I'd rather be in at a lateral move right now. So like I'm looking at the DNA here of what's my house worth and what's going on in the marketplace. So that's the nature of a seller. They're playing both fronts. So anyways, continue guys. This is
we like to say jab, jab, right hook. Jab, jab, right hook. It's one of Kiwi's favorite expressions, right? So They get an email on the buyer side. They get an email with the relevant listing alerts that they're bonded, right? Then that's going into their news feed and social media. On the seller side, they're getting this email about how their home value might have changed. They're seeing that same information when they go to Facebook 13.5 times a day, right? So it's jab, jab, right hook. Get your brand and your message everywhere. And your valuable tools everywhere. Yeah.
Yep. And then real quick, just on the bonded piece. So just to make sure we understood that together, bonded means like if I'm looking at a particular property on the agent's website, if it has an open house, if it gets a price reduction, if it gets a contract, it's going to notify me with an email. That's what it means that you're bonded.
100%.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah.
So the one little missing piece here is it's really cool all this stuff's happening and we've got all these buyers and all these sellers engaging and coming back, but agents are busy. They're really, really busy, right? So we had to basically, like we keep going down this path of like tapping them on the shoulder. So we tap them on the shoulder and say, okay, this buyer just did this. Now, we're not going to tap them on the shoulder, Jason, every single time someone interacts because that's like all day long. But when it's an elevated behavior, when they've shared a home with their significant other, they've looked at one, like you look at this one particular home for the 5th time. You know what, Jason? You might like that home, right? And we've got to tap the agent and send them these priority alerts. So we've thought deeply. We interviewed so many agents, like, what actions would you rank as really urgent? Like, obviously, a showing request is super urgent, right? Okay. But like they've looked at the home once, not so urgent. So we've ranked all that. And then the really, really important actions, they're going to get priority alerts on the buyer side as well as on the seller side as well. Right. So, hey, Josh just came back, really dug in on the financial DNA, and boom, right. We've tapped them on the shoulder. It's going to show up in their CRM, and they're going to actually get a text message. So
I think that's super smart. Because it's like, you're right. There's going to be, I mean, you were talking about, what was the number you were giving before in terms of cost per lead at the beginning of our session? It was really low. And we're doing the fish analogy. We're talking about a lot of leads. And so I think it's hypercritical as a busy agent. You get some kind of intelligence that's like, hey, this one right here is the one to go for. This one here is taking a high intent action. Follow up there so you can be a little bit more prioritized. But if you would click forward for me, Howard, you